Welcome to the Ecom Collab Club podcast, where operators, risk takers, and battle-tested founders drop the lessons that cost them time, money, and their sanity, and share what actually works so you don't have to pay the same price. Hosted by Adam Pearce, co-founder of the Ecom Collab Club and Blend Commerce, the Shopify CRO agency.
Well, good afternoon, John Burke, the founder of Craft Gin Club. What is on your mind this Monday afternoon?
Good afternoon, Adam. That was a very professional intro. It's just diverted my mind from everything else. So well done on that.
I can do professional sometimes, John. It's possible.
It's nice once in a while, but let's not get too serious now. No, it was fabulous. What's on my mind today? It's kind of a strange feeling, actually. My wife, who's French, has just flown to America, where I'm from, for work in one of the southern states. And so I've been thinking about the possibility of her getting detained at the airport.
I didn't think we were going to be talking about ICE on this show, you know, honestly, John, but I'm here.
It's a different thought. I sent her off like a 15-year-old kid leaving home for the first time with a piece of paper with the phone numbers of my parents and my siblings on it in case she gets stuck in America and she needed to pull a phone number. She had her one call and she needed to have a phone number in her pocket. The times we live in.
Oh man, well, hopefully she lands okay, and hopefully everything's all right, and hopefully at least she's going to the southern states, she'll get some good food at least.
And some sun, hopefully. So. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could all do with that right now. But look, John, thank you so much for having obviously coming on the show today. And obviously with this podcast, what I wanted to do is kind of have you on to obviously talk about the business that you founded, which was Craft Gin Club, but also go into a bit more of, I guess, the story about what happened, why it happened, and just really kind of hear a bit more from you. So if we then, I suppose, do a bit of a rewind time, so turn back the clock, going to the real basics here, why gin, why subscriptions, why Craft Gin Club?
All right, well, this is a long time ago now. So this was 2014. This idea started to percolate, summer of 2014. And it was really the conjunction of two booms, right? There was a gin boom, and subscription boxes were kind of still in their incipient phase, I would say. So we looked at those two hockey stick graphs and thought, well, if we put those together, we'll have an ultra hockey stick. And that's how that started off. With that simply, it was just a bit opportunistic. I knew a guy that was running a spirits club. I was living in Paris at the time. He was running a spirits club in America from his Parisian bedroom, and I shared that with my co-founder, who's a friend from business school. I was up visiting in London, and he just said that would work great with gin here, and so that's how it happened. It was it was kind of just opportunistic, a little bit fortuitous, and I was looking for an idea for something to launch. And over a number of drinks, that's the idea that came out of it. And the ensuing hangover didn't flush it out of my brain. So it stuck with us, and we got to work on it like the next week, I think. And yeah, just it was an interesting dive into entrepreneurship, not just because from business school we'd learned everything about managing businesses, but didn't know a hell of a lot about the spirits world, except that I enjoyed drinking the product.
So it feels a good place to start. But look, the question on my lips here is, if it hadn't have been Craft Gin Club, what were some of the other ideas that didn't make the cut?
Oh, that was actually the only one that we had at the time, the two of us together. I was previously working on a cryptocurrency startup for kind of the 6 months prior. getting into that blockchain world at the time, which was also in its early phases, but we just couldn't get the tech mindset of some of the other people that I was talking with into the business model mindset. And that was I suppose a unique learning experience, the difference in the way that developers think versus the more business minded. I have a liberal arts education background and definitely don't think in structured coding language. So we couldn't really get anything off the ground. And that's how we ended up, or I ended up in doing a gin club instead of cryptocurrency.
I mean, look, they're very different areas, and I'm just kind of glad for the world and for the sake of the world that I work in, that you chose that one, because I kind of remember, look, I started my agency back in 2017, and actually put a LinkedIn post out about saying this. One of the first ever e-commerce events I went to, someone from your team was actually talking at that event. And it really kind of got me hooked on the idea of subscriptions at the time. I guess, look, you were sort of 3 years in at that point, 2017. So look, it's cracking to have you on. I mean, the one thing I want to ask then is, so you met obviously a business school, you came up with this idea, you were looking at those two market trends. On that note, what were you doing prior to business school? And I guess, look, what would you say to people that have been, so did you do an MBA at business school?
Yeah, MBA, yeah.
I think so two questions I'm interested in. What did you do prior to your MBA? And I guess the other question would be, is that knowing what you know about today in 2026, would you recommend others in your position to do MBAs, or do you think that times have changed?
Good question. Obviously depends on what you want to do. But prior to the MBA, I worked for a few years at a international media trade association, which was based in Paris, which was an excellent opportunity actually for a kid in his 20s, because we got to travel all over the world, and it was specifically focused on the newspaper industry. So I joined a trade association for the global newspaper industry at the very minute that the global newspaper industry was about to get whacked by Facebook and Google. I think I joined 2004, which was the actual peak of newspaper revenues. Now we're talking about an industry, this leads up to why I went to business school. We're talking about an industry that for decades had quasi-monopolistic 25, 35% EBITDA margins. Sure. It was, publishers were, bedrock of stock markets. They were just assured returns for investors. And then all of a sudden, pow, Zuckerberg and Sergey and Larry come along and destroy their business model. I was sitting in meetings with these big editors in chief of newspapers and publishers, major titles around the world, very experienced gray-haired old men. No clue what was happening. Absolutely none. And that taught me a lesson. The reason I went to business school is because I was watching these guys with such massive margins watch their business model just liquidate in front of their eyes. And I was like, I should probably go touch up on or get a business education, because if these guys can't figure it out, and I'm working for a nonprofit association, I didn't really have much in the way of business strategic mindset. And my job actually was to watch the trends, the digital trends. So I was like the guy to come to in that company, and was blogging and, being the voice of the company more or less in that digital, rapidly evolving digital world. And so, yeah, I was having the conversations with these guys where they're trying to protect what they had. And it's just a tidal wave washing over them. I mean, you're going to get wiped out. What are you doing? I mean, it was a young guy, no experience, just trying to explain to these guys that what I see is that this company, Google, for instance, has a better business model than you right now. Now, what you do with journalism is crucial for our for society, for our democracies, and you can't let that go away. But can that be supported by your advertising model in the medium to long term? It really doesn't look that way. So you better get your ass in gear and do something. And then obviously there's a lot of subscription business models behind newspapers as well. More so in the States, it's a bit more newsstand purchases in the UK. But when I was growing up, we had newspaper subscriptions. The kid on the bike throwing it at your door at 6 a.m. That's not just in the movies.
I remember those good old days, John. Yeah, one of my first ever jobs.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my impetus to go to business school, and a personal one and a fascination at watching that industry get destroyed so quickly. And then would I recommend an MBA? I chose a school which sold itself on its entrepreneurial credentials, and it tried to integrate some sort of entrepreneurial element into every aspect of marketing, finance, et cetera, always trying to approach everything from the eyes of an entrepreneur. I think it was a bit different of an approach in that respect, but still it was like 99% of people just went off and went back to McKinsey or whatever, so no offense to them at all. It was just I felt like when I got out of it, fabulous foundation to be able to read a balance sheet and put it together with the cash flow statement and the P&L, et cetera, all that basic stuff. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could probably read a book and get a finance textbook and teach yourself that anyway. But from I would say if you want to go launch a business, you don't need to go do an MBA. The launching the business itself was a much more educational, real world experience than doing the degree itself. That being said, the degrees are, it's a year or two out, depending on what program you do. You get to meet people from all over the world, and that's the fun stuff, right? So you make lifelong connections that way. But I would say you don't need, if you're just looking to launch a company, you don't need it.
But I guess it depends on, like you said, I think for you, it was you kind of saying there that there were some gaps in terms of, I guess, your business knowledge that you wanted to fill. And then there are other elements that you were going for in terms of those connections, those social things, and kind of weighing it up, I guess, in that respect, I guess, is what you've got to do. I think what I was going to say, though, is interesting is that, people, there's always this question in the business about, is it about passion or is it about profit? What should you go for? It seems to me then is that, look, you've kind of got a little bit of both in yours, because you mentioned there about, being responsible for looking at trends. And obviously you'd had that experience of subscription to the newspapers. It feels like there's kind of all those things coming together here in terms of that gin and subscription. So it wasn't, I guess, completely accidental. You were aware of, the power of subscriptions from the newspaper world. And then obviously from that point of view of gin, you were good at spotting trends. Would you say that kind of trend spotting is, if you're going to say your superpower, do you think that's what it is, if you were to kind of nail it down?
Well, I don't know if spotting trends is a superpower, but it speaking from an entrepreneurial view, it can go both ways. Speaking from an entrepreneur or a businessman point of view, let's put it that way. I think I get the impression from my conversations with people over the years is that the pure businessman, certainly the pure manager, is somewhat indifferent to the industry they're working in. Personally, I don't think that's necessarily me. I think I might gag myself if I needed to go, I don't know, work in oil and gas or something. I'm just throwing it out in industry, but it's because I have absolutely zero interest in like scientific knowledge behind it, if you see what I mean. So, but then again, if you were to follow your passion, I'd probably be playing a guitar on a beach somewhere, so, but because I only know about 6 chords and can't sing, here I am talking to you, so
sorry, John, that sounds pretty shit.
It's I'm thinking, and it's probably a period in your life too. Now that I'm getting a bit older, I'm thinking I'm actually becoming a bit more conscious of the day-to-day. What do I want to work in? What do I want to build? What do I want to create for the world that is going to benefit the world, but also that I enjoy? Because, if I wanted to go do another venture, I could go launch some AI SaaS startup, but I don't know if that's me, really. You see what I mean? Like, I can't go launch an accounting tool and me wake up being happy every day. No offense to accountants.
No, look, I get it completely, and I think you say there is so much. I think, look, I guess a lot of people listening will know the same. There are certain things that you sometimes just have to grin and bear it and get through it. But ultimately, if there is not something there that drives you to go forward, you're not going to be successful. But on that note, actually, let's ask. I wanted to ask this question: is that when you first started, who told you that it was going to fail and why? And if you want to tell them to piss off or give them the V's or whatever you want to do, that's entirely up to you. Or if you want to keep professional, you can do the same.
No, I'll be professional, because nobody actually, I can't think of anybody that told us it wouldn't work. And that's probably because we didn't speak to anybody or ask anybody.
I love it.
We just went off and did it. And that's partially because we started in our bedrooms. So we had no experience in the alcohol industry at all. It turns out it's quite a friendly and fun industry. And because we launched in our bedrooms, we weren't talking to anybody. And it took a month or 6 weeks to get the content going, to the website set up, et cetera, and start to build that community. And but the first time I spoke with a distiller we wanted to work with, was like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? So there wasn't, we didn't get much pushback at all, or any that I can remember, but that might be a function of the people we spoke with. But we bootstrapped it from our bedroom, so it's like you just stuck your head into it. And I had the fortunate situation that I was able to start work on it full time immediately. So it was just grafting day to day, trying to figure it out. You start with a nebulous concept, and you got to try and create some infrastructure around it, build something concrete. And that's just, you start every day with a void almost, and you try just an idea. It's like, that's where I want to get to, but you got to figure out how to get there. That's what every day of building the company was like.
You mentioned earlier on, obviously, about the newspaper industry, and sort of that they had, sort of that bit of a crescendo moment where things started to change. From the point of view of subscriptions and look, subscriptions in general, but I think equally, sort of alcohol subscriptions. Look, you and I both know the market now. There is a lot of them around, and the one I was interested to ask you is that, what do you think maybe is either the moat that Craft Gin Club has built, or secondly, what are the things that you think subscription brands, or particularly alcohol subscription brands, need to be doing now to, I guess, kind of protect themselves from any sort of big moments that like you saw with the sort of systemic change that happened with the newspaper industry?
Yeah, the main moat is definitely community. So it's community and brand. And that community and brand is that we started the business in 2014, 2015, just by building a newsletter list, churning out content, trying to get some interest. Didn't know who the demographic was. Had an idea of what the demographic might be. It turned out it was the complete opposite of that ended up being the
We've all been there, I think.
Yeah, really, really eye-opening experience. And but I think it's what it comes back to is everybody's human, and it's that humanity in those relationships, both on the customer and on the supplier side, that are going to make your company a success. I think everything else is basic. It's almost a commodity. Like you can, the logistics are there. There's so much software you can pick off the shelf now. You hardly need any massive coders, it seems like, with particularly in the with the the Claude AI and everything coding for you. So the only barrier, the only real USP, the major barrier to entry is just building that community, building that trust. And it's noticeable in what happened to a lot of companies like ours as the pandemic started to wane, is that we all seemed to have gotten used to easy growth and then didn't switch the mindset quickly or proportionally enough to get back to the roots of the community, and so ended up chasing the acquisitions still because they were so easy for a while, and then why aren't they as easy as they were, and kept trying to push for that growth without realizing that actually those people that we're trying to obtain right now probably aren't your core community, aren't part of your core community. So the question that a lot of companies started asking themselves is, why am I chasing those people if they're not core? They're not my core customer. So the community is very it's your main USP. I think it's gotten harder to build just because of the way that social media advertising has, more than anything, has evolved. We built the company off the back of Facebook, as did many others at the time, right? And it was very, I'm not going to say easy. It was still a lot of testing going on just to figure out who you're going to attract as a customer. But there was a lot of unsold inventory for all intents and purposes on the social media platforms. So your cost of acquisition was relatively low. You could get people to sign up for a newsletter, et cetera, and all that sort of stuff has just become ultra saturated. So it's harder to find the people that want to be in your community, which actually conversely makes the community that you have even more important to you. And you got to nurture that community because more than anything at this point, it's that community that's going to help you grow your community. I mean, paying Zuckerberg to put his kids through college is not growing my community anymore.
And his kids as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Mark, if you're listening, you probably aren't, but hey ho, there we go. John, again, circling back like to way back when, some people listening to this obviously will be customers and probably have either just had their box or are about to get it. What was the first ever offer or the first ever box that you guys put together? What did that look like in comparison to what it looks like now?
Oh, as I said, it was bootstrapped. So we initially, back when we started, we were drop shipping from the distilleries, and actually thinking about it, we were very much non-compliant with GDPR regulations, if those were around then, because I don't think we were anyway, because it was call up the distilleries we wanted to work with after doing some research on them. Do you want to do this? This is how it works. Can you pop a few dozen bottles in the post for us and ship them out? Yeah, sure, no problem. That's fine. We'll write a magazine about you as a little PDF thing at the time because it didn't make any sense to print anything. And it was just the bottle of booze at the time. There wasn't any cocktail mixers or anything else in the box. So it was just send them a spreadsheet with all the customers' addresses on it and say ship it out. So yeah, I'd probably get in trouble with that.
We'll just forget you said that. It's fine. So I guess, look, and then obviously, as some people know, is that with your boxes, you then have, the products, sort of snacks, and you obviously have the magazine now as well. I guess you referred to it earlier on as well, but I suppose one of the things that does strike me is that you mentioned about those relationships and, having the gall and balls to pick the phone up and talk to people. I think it's something that I definitely feel is lacking. And I think as time goes on, the willingness of people to do that, because the expectation is everything is going to be digital. Is that something that you worry about for kind of future entrepreneurs and maybe entrepreneurs now, is that they could kind of have a bit of an edge in the way that you maybe did that within, Craft Gin Club?
You mean in the way they communicate with people, with suppliers?
Yeah, I just wonder whether, kind of you feel that entrepreneurs, sort of younger entrepreneurs now have lost that ability to have those conversations and have the gall just to literally, pick the phone up and call people. A lot of my peers, will often say that, members of their team and agencies are absolutely petrified of picking up the phone, which just is.
No, I see what you're talking about.
Bizarre.
I see what you're talking about. It's something that is not bothered is a bit strong, but it's it kind of gets back to the humanity we were talking about earlier, right? Like, well, now you get, for some reason, you even get spam calls on your mobile. My number must be circulating somewhere, because it's like, people that call me is just people trying to sell me stuff. But that temptation to just go digital and just email people, it's not the right way to do things. Picking up the phone and talking with people is a tried and tested model, which worked all the post World War II. That's all they had was a phone, and they'd sit at the desk and pick up the phone and call people. And it's even within offices, when people sit there and Slack each other or email each other, and like, that person's right over across the office. You can get up out of your chair and tap them on the shoulder if you really want to talk about something. Go have a coffee. I think it would be an advantage for any entrepreneur to just call people. I mean, you're going to get rejected, 99 times out of 100, but you got to build up those calluses, that emotional callus, that because somebody didn't accept your offer, you don't get depressed about it. Just say, okay, yeah, we'll get you next time or whatever, and call the next person. Now you can even have AI bots doing that for you for a top of funnel, and you join the call when it's when they're qualified leads, which we haven't tested yet, but I'm curious. So
I know what you mean. I think the other side of it as well is that whether, as the general public becomes more aware of these things happening, I think at the moment there is kind of a disdain for it when people hear that it's going on. But I think we are very soon in a position where people are unaware of actually when they are or maybe are not talking to an AI bot. But I think on the other hand, the other thing I think that concerns me is that, particularly for a business like yours, where customer service has always been so important, and having the ability to call up and have a conversation, about your subscription if you need to, losing some of that, I don't know whether that is then going against the grain of the whole community piece. So I think it'd be interesting to see what happened with that. But on that note, I actually wanted to bring up a question from Craig here. So Craig said, how much has your proposition changed from its MVP? Did you need to adapt due to different customer demand, or had you hit the proposition bullseye from the start?
Nobody hits the proposition bullseye from the start, I would say, but we definitely adapted it. As I said, we started drop shipping, and then randomly at some point, one of the distillers had a deal with a tonic company, and they slid a bottle of tonic in. And me at the time, I was thinking, oh my God, you're giving me several hundred bottles of tonic. Little did I know at the time, it cost him like 60 quid or something all in, because it's so cheap to to make that stuff. And then when we noticed how good the reaction was, that somebody, the consumer could open their box and have a drink ready to go, then we started layering on different cocktail mixers and snacks. We worked with a distillery who had a cheese farm. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but they made cheese, and they put cheese in the box randomly, one early-ish box, and people enjoyed that. So we started to create themes around the distillery, be it geographic or seasonal, and tried to tailor the stuff around the extras in the box around that theme, so there was a coherent experience. So it definitely changed. Like, it went from one product in a digital magazine to this like 10 to 12 individual items now in each box to help the experience with the spirit.
Awesome. And look, we've been quite positive so far. What I want you to do is kind of to scratch that scab on your arm. And the question is, what's the sort of the one monumental screw up you've had along the way in terms of the subs that you'll never, or maybe never not forgive yourself about, but still go, can't believe we did that?
Oh, there's a few of them. What did we do? The biggest one. Well, I already mentioned, we got addicted to that kind of top line number at some point, sacrifice the community. So I've said that one. There was also, as in that same vein, as the cost of acquisitions were going up, and you needed to, you still want to have a decent payback period, and so we had tiered frequencies. You could sign up every month, every other month, or every quarter to receive a box 12 times a year, 6 times a year, or 4 times a year. And we eliminated the quarterly option at some point, not because it wasn't favored by the community, because it was very popular. It was just because we couldn't get the payback. So instead of working more on the retention piece, we just nixed it from the subscription, from the onboarding flow, to push people towards a higher frequency. And I still to this day don't know what that did, how that affected churn. Did that increase churn because people didn't have that other option? On the way out, if they were churning out, we would offer it at that point. But it feels kind of scammy to me now that in retrospect, thinking, well, we have this offer, but we don't actually offer it to you because we're trying to maximize our LTV and our payback period. Every business has to do. But
of course,
harder work behind the scenes of trying to keep them, and making sure that those cohorts were incentivized properly to hang around. It was just taken away from the acquisition piece. And I think that probably hurt us a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting point you make, and it's kind of reminded me of one of the ladies from Small who was talking at Ecom Club the week about subscriptions, and I think like you say, when you guys started, it was okay. Look, let's get them buying as much as you possibly can, as frequently as possible. The churn element wasn't really something that I guess we were thinking too much about at that point. But equally, I think now there is definitely this shift towards people being a bit more strategic about what they do. And I remember the lady from Smile saying that, for them, they don't actually push subscriptions until they've had, I think, 2 or 3 singular purchases. And then they introduce subscriptions actually on an email rather than being on site. So I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because again, there is, whichever way you look at it from a business point of view, if you are saying more money more frequently, then you of course you're going to want to grab that with both hands. But it's the longer term play of saying, well, what is the impact on the churn in the business, and ultimately what does LTV then look like in the longer run? And I think it's very difficult, I think, even now with a lot of the brands that we work with, of having that trade-off between the patience and the payoff.
Well, I think it's also a psychological thing, obviously not for the newer companies, but for those that have been around for a while. As we mentioned before, what used to be not easy or cheap or super cheaper, but it was quite in proportionally to today, was much easier and much cheaper to onboard those people. So the legacy mindset of that, has made it more difficult to adapt to the realities of today's ecosystem, today's environment, than it would have if we started the company 3 years ago, let's say. You would have had to start very differently from the get-go. And so it's flushing out that legacy mindset and all of the operations around that mindset that can be difficult because you get organizational inertia. Some people don't want to change internally, but I mean that's the nature of any business. You have to continually evolve, and if you don't, you get left behind. So, yeah, I would. I'm kind of jealous of those just starting out today a little bit.
Well, I'd say if you're a little bit jealous of people starting out, I suppose the other thing is you can maybe impart some wisdom on them as well. But on the flip side of, okay, one thing went wrong, what's the one thing that you look back and go, do you know what, Dan, that was an absolute stroke of genius, or God, that was something great, something you feel probably a little bit smug about still today?
Yeah, actually along the same lines was the frequencies, because we just started with a monthly thing, and we realized, okay, a lot of people don't drink that much, do they? And so then we figured out how to technically introduce 6 times a year or 4 times a year, bi-monthly or quarterly, and also which just shot, I mean, the membership, and it was a real boost in the early days to people being more attracted by it, and also introducing gifting into it. As a bootstrap company, the gift you pay up front for product you sell or you ship later. So it was a real cash flow boon for a totally bootstrap company and 2 guys in their bedroom. So that figuring out those nuances of what different customers wanted and trying to adapt without really changing the way you work too much. So it's still the same product that would go out. It would just go out if you wanted it on a lower frequency. You just receive it less. So it really helped to boost, to broaden the appeal to the consumer base.
And a bit of a side question here. In terms, obviously, you guys seeing this, you had relationships obviously with different distillers. You were developing relationships with different snack providers. Did you ever flirt with the idea of creating your own brand to then put within the box? Is that something that you've ever done or do?
Yeah, we have some products we make ourselves, some seasonal stuff like advent calendars and Christmas crackers, some miniature sets. So we'll put different spirits from different distilleries in a little set that you could put at the till of a supermarket, for instance. We make cocktail syrups and cocktail dried garnishes. We have relationships on retail relationships with like John Lewis and Oliver Bonus and stuff like that. We have done seasonal liqueurs and some gins, but we never launched our own brand. It's always something that I wanted to explore. We just never got it off the ground. You could think about cocktail mixers. Like we ship enough tonic, for instance, that we could actually launch your own brand if you wanted to, because you got the volume to do that. But what we do behind the scenes as well, it does clash a little bit with the business model.
Yeah, because I can say, that's what I was interested, because I guess I'm not like Amazon, but I guess in the sense of, look, Amazon obviously sell their own branded products, and there's been this whole hoo-ha about them prioritizing their own versus others. Is that part of the reason that kind of held you back from that, to go, look, we've developed these relationships, we've got a great relationship with distiller A, B, and C. If we're then, craft gin, original gin coming out, does that leave a sour taste? Is that kind of a bit of the thought process? Oh, I think we may have lost you there, John. Hi, John.
Can you hear me?
Hey, John. Sorry, yeah, we lost you for a couple of moments there.
Yeah, just got on. Oh, sorry, you were just saying about the relationships we had with the suppliers.
Yeah, so just Yeah, was that kind of one of the reasons that you didn't kind of want to step on their toes and I guess, look, frankly, piss them off?
Yeah, to a certain degree, because we actually run a mini marketing agency within the company, meaning we run marketing campaigns for the brands that we work with. So, which helps, as you know, e-commerce is already for physical goods like this kind of goods that we work with, it has quite a thin margin already. So to be a true D2C player, we had to try to find a way to have a true D2C margin. And to do that, instead of paying for the product, we created a little in-house marketing agency. So we'll get stock in exchange for the campaign instead of paying cash for the stuff.
Okay.
And that allows us to have a margin that makes sense, because if we were just buying everything, business doesn't work, pretty much. So that's
because
how we,
ultimately then.
Yeah.
Sorry, after you.
No, I said that's how we squared that circle.
Because is that because ultimately you built that community, you had the newsletter, you grew from day one, and you can then use that obviously then to market those products too, which then kind of gives you more leverage in that respect.
Yeah, precisely. So we get really good feedback from the community on all the products, and can send out tailored customer research surveys, things of that nature. But more than anything, it's with some of the brands, it's a much more effective way to sample products than standing at a tube stop or standing in the supermarket. Just because you get the product into the people where they can enjoy it in the comfort of their home, and then they'll give you feedback on how they actually used it and what they thought of the product in a more natural environment.
Absolutely.
So that's what we do with our brand partners in that way, and they love the campaigns. Actually, we have an extraordinarily high return rate on companies we work with on those. They really like the campaigns. It's
excellent. No, that's really interesting and something that I've not heard of before. So thank you for sharing that. I've got a couple more questions before we close out, and they're two quite important ones. And the first one is that thinking about obviously the sort of the lifetime and sort of life cycle of Craft Gin Club. How has sort of subscription model sort of ebb and flowed over the years? Do you guys see that you get, a lot of fluctuations within a 12-month period? Are there general trends on top of that year to year? Like, what does it kind of look like in terms of monitoring the ebb and flow of subscriptions from an alcohol brand perspective?
There's pre-COVID and during COVID and post-COVID. I'd say there's three stages of historic stages of the business, and now the post-COVID cycles are they're pretty steady at this point. So I would say year on year, it's pretty predictable again already, where there was probably good 18 to 24 months, 22, 20, end of 21 through halfway through 23, probably, where it was still a bit spiky. But we're getting back to being able to forecast pretty well, and the churn in month 3 and 2 years ago is pretty much the same churn that you have now. So it's certainly smoothed out. It's more predictable than it used to be. But I'd say it's a question. Would if we were starting out again, would we start with the same business model? I'm not actually sure. Not actually sure. And I think that's partially because you hear it everywhere, subscription fatigue. Well, we hear it everywhere in our industry anyway. So the consumers are a little bit turned off by subscriptions at this point for physical goods, unless they serve like small, you were mentioning, like it's very utilitarian replenishment. I think one thing that our company is working on and has been working on and getting there is the strengthening the positioning of the company. So if you would take subscriptions as three basic use cases, your replenishment, we're just talking your curation or exclusivity, a little bit different, but same vein, and your surprise and delight, something that it could be a self-treat for yourself, or people like opening the boxes and getting us, not knowing what's inside and getting a surprise. We always said we do all three of those, and I think that was actually probably a weakness. I think we needed to focus on one or the other, because if you're trying to do everything for everybody, you're going to dilute your offering, and so you got to choose one of those. And I think the exclusivity element, the surprise and delight element, is always what we've lent on. I think potentially it might be better to lean on, in our case, in the spirit side of things, more of the exclusivity curation side of things, because you can do, is we have such great relationships with distilleries now. We can work on them with on exclusive editions. They love doing that sort of stuff. So we could do members only editions, which we do already for the subscription boxes, but you can do more. And we deal primarily in gin, but we also work in other spirits. So that's a way to get into other spirits without diluting the gin experience, or committing to being a traditional e-commerce store that's not differentiated.
No, it's actually really interesting what you say there, because I think there's two things that make me think about what you mentioned about doing those three things. Is like, number one, do you in a sense end up making a rod for your own back, in the fact that, look, you're delighting customers so much in those three different levels, you have to keep the momentum going, which means you have to constantly be then finding new innovative products and then expanding the range with different suppliers that you have. But I suppose then the other side of it too is that if you sort of are in a sense making it not less exciting, but like I said, more utilitarian, does that then have more of a benefit in the fact that churn reduces? So I'm kind of seeing that there might be sort of like pros and cons of both, if that makes sense.
Well, no, to me, it comes back to the community you're building, and who is that community? So I'm thinking of if you ever walk through Soho on a Saturday morning, I'm in London, every so often there's a massive queue outside of, I think it's there's a few of them, but one of them that comes to mind is Supreme, isn't it? A skateboarding company, right? It starts at like 4 a.m, and you got all these kids lining up to get whatever they're dropping that day. So it's that loyalty to that brand and that excitement that they're getting because that brand just said, we've got this special new product. That's a way to boost, to generate community, and it's a kind of a FOMO thing-ish, but it's more, you get special, if you're part of our community, you get special access to the stuff that nobody else gets special access to. So I don't think I don't want our company to be utilitarian. I don't think it's a replenishment thing, because we're supposed to be dealing with stuff that's hard to find. Now, hard to find is also a difficult path to walk, because you can find everything these days, right? By putting into Google. So it's not a question of, can I find this? It's a question of, does this exist for other people? And if the answer is there and that's your bag, that's what interests you, that's what motivates you, because you're getting this exclusive access. I think that's more of a driver for people to be part of the community. And that combined with all the content and, if you have exclusive content, interviews, events, do exclusive events for them. So if you can get that community membership style mixture between product, content, and real world events, you're doing pretty well at that point, I'd say. And I think that skateboarding company, for instance, does a good job of it. And there's a few other ones. It's an athletic company for women whose name escapes me now, which does a pretty good job of it. Membership, or was it Fab Fit Fun, or one of those? There's a few.
Yeah, I mean, look, you mentioned memberships, and I think, look, that was actually going to be my sort of last question to you in terms of, I guess, thinking more about the future with subscriptions, because I think there's been this silent sort of thing happening a couple of years ago where people started talking, like you said, about subscription fatigue, and is there a different way? Can people use memberships? And we saw, I think, look, 2025, quite a few brands offering a membership, a la, sort of Amazon Prime. What do you think about memberships in terms of what they could offer brands, I guess, on the plus side? And I think on the other hand, again, if you were, because obviously now you advise the companies in sort of a non-exec director positioned. If you were kind of saying, look, well, hang on a minute, memberships, is there anything that worries you or makes you question, hang on a minute, what about this thing?
Yeah, there's certainly room for both. And I would say you can do a hybrid moving forward as well, because you're never going to be able to please everyone, and you probably shouldn't try. And I'd say the advantages of subscription, probably the main advantage from a consumer perspective, is the set and forget, right? There's no friction. I don't have to do anything. I sign up. These people either replenish what I've got or they curate this thing for me, and it just shows up my doorstep and I don't have to think about it. They charge my card, pish posh, done, right? The membership and what we were just discussing, there's more interaction, which can be just as, I think that's where you create the community feel. And it's if you're giving exclusive access to something, you have to announce that access and then they have to purchase it. So there's more friction from that perspective, but it can also be more fun depending on the profile of the consumer. So are you a set and forget person, or do you really want exclusive access? And maybe you need to layer those things on top of each other so that you have a main product that replenishes. And I mean, if I'm small, I don't know how excited I'd be about a drop for a floor wash or something, but if you're in my business, or in consumer, in discretionary consumables with luxury or affordable luxury credentials, you can certainly have both a subscription and then some exclusive access baked on top. And I think that's a model that's worth toying around with to see what kind of value you get and which demographics sign up to which model. And then obviously there's loyalty on top of that, but are those loyalty programs in themselves a Costco membership you're part of it's a membership, but that's kind of your loyalty, I suppose. At that point, you're going to go spend more because you already signed up for the membership. So there's room for both. Statistically, those that define themselves as a member see higher spend, from what I've read, just because the consumer feels engaged with them already, because they're they pay into it annually, whatever. One thing I would caution probably is when I was looking around, as I do look into these things for research purposes, knowledge purposes, there's some that describe themselves as memberships, but then it's just a monthly deduction anyway. And I'm just kind of thinking, well, is that just a subscription by another name? So I think that you'll see a good 18 to 24 months of experimentation in that on those models. And I don't know. I don't think one or the other is going to win. I think it's just a matter of who your customer base is and what your product is and what works best.
Love it. And I think, look, that's very sage advice to listen to end on, John. So thank you so much for being with us today. And guys, if you want to ask John any questions, John, you will find him on LinkedIn, I'm sure. And John, if people want to get in touch, what's the best thing to do?
Oh yeah, get me on LinkedIn. It's do you have it? Can you put it in the?
We can put the link in the show notes as well. Yeah, not a problem at all.
Not, it's all public anyway, isn't it? So I won't give you my phone number though, like those lists.
No, we know your history of GDPR as well, John. You told us about that.
Yeah. That's what I'm paying for that now. It's payback. It's karma.
Absolutely. But thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have liked what you've listened to today, do give us a like or a follow on the listening platform of your choice. We'll be here again, same time again, with the Ecom Collab Club podcast next week. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Ecom Collab Club podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and join our community at ecomcollabclub.com/community.